Hi, friends. E.C. Maltbia here, Senior Pastor of the True Holiness Saints Center in the beautiful city of Conway, Arkansas. And at the time of tonight's recording, it is Wednesday, April the 16th, 2025. And over the last few days, I've spent a lot of time praying and pondering about the senseless act of violence that occurred in the city of Conway at our Fifth Avenue Park. On Sunday afternoon, 2 young people lost their lives, while 9 others were shot and treated at our local hospitals. And ever since that day, I've been praying and pondering the question why. More specifically, I've been wondering why so many young people have so much pent-up anger and rage in their hearts. I've been wondering why so many of them turn to violence so quickly to resolve their disagreements. And I believe I've come up with a simple yet complex answer to why this so often occurs. And when I think about why it occurs, the one word that comes to mind is disrespect. And when I talk about disrespect, I'm referring to young people who feel belittled, insulted, and/or treated less than others. Disrespect. And when many of our young people feel disrespect, whether it's real or imagined, it triggers unrestrained anger and rage in their lives. And as a result, many of them often move further into violence and tragedy. So when you think about young people feeling disrespected, when you think about young people who feel like they've been belittled or insulted or treated less than, whether it's real or imagined, you add to it peer pressure. You add to it substance abuse. You add to it an unhealthy family dynamic, and you have a recipe for disaster. You have a recipe for violence and unrestrained rage. Think about it for just a moment. Many of our young people not only feel disrespected, but that is increased by peer pressure. Unfortunately, these young people, their friend circle, both model and encourage an unrestrained approach to addressing that disrespect. So there's unbridled anger, there's peer pressure, and then many deal with substance abuse. You cannot think clearly or make wise, good decisions when you're under the influence of drugs and/or alcohol. Being impaired always negatively impacts your good judgment, and it also increases your chances of having angry outbursts. You've got young people who feel disrespected. You've got their peers who are modeling and encouraging bad behavior. You've got substance abuse that are altering their minds as they go through these moments of anger. And then you think about their unhealthy family dynamics. See, many young people have never been taught how to resolve conflict in a healthy manner. Many of these young people have never seen their parents or their families resolve conflict in nonviolent ways. Many of these same young people have never been taught by their moms or their dads how to manage their emotions. And so when you have a group of young people who feel disrespected, who feel belittled, insulted, and treated less than, whether it's real or imagined, and you add to that peers, a circle of friends who are both modeling and encouraging bad behavior. And when you add to that substance abuse and not thinking clearly and no parental guidance in their life, it is a recipe for disaster. Certainly, it does not justify, it does not excuse, but it is a recipe that many of these young people are going through, and they cannot handle it, and they're making some awful decisions. So as I began to ponder and pray, how could this happen in Conway, Arkansas? How could this happen anywhere in America? How could this happen in our world? It all stems from a young person feeling disrespected. A young person that has never been taught how to manage their emotions or how to deal with conflict in a healthy way. So I thought tonight what I would do during our Wednesday word is to simply give you 3 things that can immediately help to combat this problem we're dealing with our young people. So Pastor Maltbia, moving forward, how do we deal with a generation that's full of rage? How do we deal with a generation whose peers are both modeling and encouraging bad behavior? How do we deal with a generation that has substance abuse addictions and no strong family ties to guide their way? I think as a community, and I think as a country, there are 3 things we should consider. Number 1, enlist the power of prayer. Yeah. First and foremost, you've got to invite God into your situation. In fact, let me digress and give you our social media quote for tonight. What is the social media quote, Pastor Maltbia? It is simply a thought or thesis that we encourage you to put out on all of your social media platforms for information and for inspiration. And here it is tonight. Very simply 3 words. Prayer still works. I don't know about you, but my faith in Jesus tells me that prayer still works. More specifically, I believe that prayer can still help change the hearts, the minds, and the lifestyles of our young people. I am here to remind you that prayer still works. Paul says in 2 Corinthians 10:4, the weapons we fight with are not weapons of this world. On the contrary, they have divine power to demolish strongholds. You've got to remember, ma'ams and sirs, that we're fighting a very real devil. We've got to remember that we're fighting a very real devil who wants nothing more than to destroy the lives and the future of our young people. And you cannot fight demonic forces with conventional tactics. You've got to understand it's spiritual warfare, and we've got to fight it in the spirit. If we're going to deal with young people who feel disrespected, young people who don't know how to handle their emotions, young people whose peers are modeling bad behavior, whose substance abuse is impairing their judgment, young people who don't have healthy family models to follow, we've got to remember to enlist the power of prayer. But secondly, if we want to reach this generation of young people in our homes, in our communities, and in our nation, not only do we enlist the power of prayer, but secondly, we've got to engage the youth we already know. Yeah, let's start by engaging and interacting with the youth we already know. Zechariah chapter 4, verse 10a says it like this: who dares despise the day of small beginnings. In other words, Zechariah tells us that small concerted effort can make a big difference in the life of the most upset young person. Small concerted efforts can make a difference in the life of young people who seem lost. Therefore, we as a community have to start with the kids we already know. Maybe that means you start with your children and grandchildren. Maybe that means that you start with your nieces and nephews. Maybe that means that you start with your students or student athletes. Maybe that means you start with the neighborhood kids and the church youth group. But you've got to start somewhere. And the best place to start is with the kids you already know, the kids you already interact with, the kids you have some type of relationship with already. And once that's going in the right direction, then you expand and move forward. So again, when we're dealing with a violent generation that feels disrespected, belittled, insulted, and made feel less than, whether real or imagined, when we're dealing with kids who have peers who both model and encourage bad behavior, who are addicted to substance abuse, and who don't have a proper, healthy family example, we've got to enlist the power of prayer. We're fighting spiritual warfare. We've got to begin right where we are with the kids we know. And here's the last one, and I'm going to get out of here. We've got to remember that fighting for our young people is a team effort. None of us can do it all alone. None of us have all the answers. None of us have all the influence. None of us have all the resources it needs to save a generation of young people. I've been taught all of my life it takes a village to deal with a problem of this magnitude. This is why King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, penned these words in Ecclesiastes 4:9. Two are better than one because they have a good return on their labor. They have a good return on their work. And I want you to know, as you're thinking about how we address the problems in our community with our young people, this senseless violence, this unbridled anger, we've got to work together, collaborating with one another, finding community partners with the same heart and the same vision to impact our young people in a positive way. Collaborating with local churches and law enforcement, collaborating with schools, collaborating with nonprofits and other organizations that are committed to making a difference with our young people locally and even nationally. Tonight's Wednesday word is disrespect. And I think at the nucleus, the reason so many young people are making such violent choices stems from the fact they feel disrespected. Whether it's real or it's imagined, they feel belittled. They feel insulted. They feel made less than, made fun of. And nobody has ever taught them how to handle conflict in a healthy way. Nobody has never taught them how to bridle and restrain their anger. Their peers are modeling bad behavior already. Substance abuse is impairing their judgment. And they don't have a solid family unit to fall back on. Therefore, you and I, we've got to enlist the power of prayer. Because I don't care what people tell you, prayer still works. Not only do we got to get some prayer, but we've got to engage with the kids that are around us, the ones you see every day or every week. But ultimately, as an organization, as a church, as a community, or a family, we've got to come together to do what is right with our young people. Ma'ams and sirs, we are now just a few days from Easter Sunday morning. And I want to invite all of you to be a part of the Easter services here at True Holiness Saints Center. We're going to be talking about the good news of salvation. So if you're in Central Arkansas, make your way to True Holiness Saints Center. Services start at 11 o'clock. Doors open at 10:30. We have a 90-minute service power pack ready for you. And if you are out of our geographical location, then you can meet us online. Until we speak again, my friends, be blessed.